Hello to you, dear listener. If you're new, welcome, and if you're returning, well, welcome back. This is episode 21 of Off the Rails podcast. Streaming on Spotify, Amazon Music and Google Podcasts, this is Off the Rails, in which yours truly, the off-rail gamer that is, talks mostly about video games, but also about other things sometimes. It's mostly coherent at least, even when we do skip off topic on a merry little tangent, or even to deliver public service announcements sometimes. I'm not claiming to be the fountain of youth, no that's not right, the font of all knowledge even, but if I can play a part in helping to keep people safe, I'll do what I can. I mean, I'm not going to be awarded that OBE for nothing, am I? So eat your greens, look both ways before crossing the road, and don't do drugs unless you brought enough for everyone. And with that out of the way, perhaps I can continue delivering my introduction. There's a lot of important information I need to impart, so maybe grab a pen and paper to jot down some notes. My Orgonauts will know this means I'm about to plug my socials. First up, I have a YouTube channel onto which I try to upload videos every Saturday, aiming for 10 AM to try and give you a rough schedule. Admittedly, I have missed the odd upload here and there, but for the most part, I've been able to put something up most weeks. The channel, offrailgamer, has been live for a little over 18 months now, so hopefully you'll find something that meets your tastes in the 100 or so videos available to watch now. And talking of watching, I finally started streaming again. I'm trying to work out a schedule and whether to go live on Twitch or TikTok, or even to share my attention between the two. Right now, that's a me problem, but I will let you know if I develop a preference for one over the other, and what my routine ends up looking like. Anyway, my Twitch and TikTok both go by the same name as my YouTube, as does my X account. Now, I don't tweet an awful lot, so I wouldn't blame you if you don't want to follow me over there. No one wants to be associated with the Elon Musk app of dread, but I do often post links to my latest content here and on YouTube, and I also use it to let people know when and where I'm going live. I'm not verified anywhere, so don't go looking for any blue ticks or anything else official looking. If you're at all interested though, I have posted all my links in the podcast episode description. And finally, I welcome comments, questions, feedback, suggestions, and really messages of any kind from my listeners. If you have something you'd like to say, please feel free to start a dialogue with me by sending an email to offrailgamer@gmail.com. I've popped that in the episode description as well, along with my other links. The only thing I ask is that you try to keep your comments clean, and also try not to be too mean. We have a semi-regular segment in the podcast called Listeners' Whispers, in which I read out and respond to any emails I've received, which is the reason I've set those 2 golden rules. Now, this week's intro is beginning to run away from us, and I don't want it becoming the entire show, so how about I instead tell you all about some of the games I've been playing recently. I went ahead and did a few test streams a couple of weeks ago looking at Marvel Ultimate Alliance on Twitch, Croc Legend of the Gobbos on TikTok, and then Gex 3D and Rugrats Royal Ransom on YouTube. Don't worry that you missed them, although you can watch the VOD from my YouTube stream. These were really just me having a test run on each streaming platform to try and work out which I prefer for future lives. Marvel Ultimate Alliance plays very similarly to Champions of Norath, in which up to 4 buddies can play together, playing as one of the hero characters. I was playing on PS2 this time, but have only ever played it on PSP in the past. I have to say though, I didn't notice many differences between the 2 versions, except that, in my opinion, it does actually look better on the smaller screen of the portable. On the big telly, the graphics were a bit pixelated. I'd only recently got my hands on all of these games actually, but was excited to play Croc having seen some other streamers playing it. It's a great little game, although being a PS1 title the controls do take a little getting used to nowadays, being somewhat tanky as they are. I found I got on much better using the D-pad than the analog sticks, and by the end of the hour I was just starting to get the hang of it. Gex 3D was terrific fun. We started out in a spooky level, and yet again I was forced to get the hang of the controls. However, after a short while, I was starting to get to grips with it. We were fending off ghosts and skulls, and there were possessed suits of armour taking swings at us with their greatswords, but Gex didn't let any of that faze him. It was the second level that I really enjoyed though, in which we ventured to Toonland. There was an area of the map called Hard Head Area, in which large old ladies and acme-ton weights were falling from the sky. No sooner had I commented that it put me in mind of Looney Tunes when we ran into none other than Elmer Fudd during Wabbit season, and it was then I noticed Gex was dressed up as Bugs Bunny. We finished up Toonland and I felt like having a look at something different before ending the stream, so I put on Rugrats Royal Ransom for the PS2. Essentially this plays out as a series of mini-games and we only got a look at a couple of races, but it was fun nonetheless. From what I understand, Twitch streams stay up for 14 days after broadcast, so I don't think you'll be able to catch my Marvel Ultimate Alliance VOD, nor my TikTok lives either, but I have saved the VOD of Gex and Rugrats on YouTube, so you can still trek over there to give them a watch. These were my test streams, but since then I started going live with a new playthrough series on TikTok. We hopped on the PS5 and loaded up Clive and Wrench. Now I'm only going to talk about our first stream with this title, as at the time of writing this script, that's all I played of it. We started in a house. No, wait, we can do better than that. Look, I don't know how much you'll already know about Clive and Wrench. To give you an idea, it's very cutesy. You play as a rabbit named Clive, and his buddy, literally the monkey on his back, Wrench. Before playing, I was expecting something along the lines of Banjo-Kazooie or Ratchet & Clank, and in fairness, it's not a million miles off that, but as I was playing, I felt it actually gave off Spyro the Dragon vibes a lot more. Allow me to quote the back of the game box when I tell you, Your adventure takes you hurtling through time and space in a 1950s refrigerator on a heroic quest to thwart the tyrannical Dr. Dorcas and stop his evil plans. Yes, Clive and Wrench will take you through time. I'm not entirely sure of every historical setting we'll be visiting, but I have a feeling that ancient Egypt and the Wiki Wiki Wild Wild West will be on the cards. We started in a house, but it didn't quite seem to be present day, as there were VHS cassette tapes scattered around the living room and a game console that looked to be playing something akin to Mario Kart on the telly. My guess, therefore, is that this house resides somewhere in the 1990s. No, I could be wrong on that count. We met a sad bee in the kitchen. They'd been teaching their children to fly when they got injured by some purple goop. Clive and Wrench were asked to round up the wee bees, and sure enough we did reunite the family, earning an ancient stone for our collection. We also flooded the bathroom. Well, but let's not dwell on that. Our next location resembled Victorian London, and there was so much to explore here, including a museum kitted out with dinosaur bones and sarcophaguses? Mummies. But our quest, rather unfortunately, took us into the sewers. Pooh-wee! We also rescued some caged baby badgers and reunited them with their anxious parent. I had a really fun time with Clive and Wrench, and it's very likely I've since done more streams with it. You can catch me playing this when I go live on TikTok, as I expect it to be unoffensive enough to avoid getting me banned at all. Well, fingers crossed at least. Off-channel, I went back to my playthrough of Assassin's Creed Origins. I really love this game, and since the last podcast I've given the hyena and the lizard what for. I really love exploring the numerous tombs scattered about the world map though, and I've also been really immersing myself in the game world by completing every side quest I can get my hands on as well. But golly, I have so many games to play at the moment. I still need to complete God of War Ragnarok so that I can go back and play Hellblade, preferably before its sequel releases. And then I have Moss 1 and 2 to try out in VR, and one day I mean to get round to the Horizon games. And when Spider-Man 2 comes down in price, oh goodness, when shall I ever find the time? And lastly, for this section of the podcast, I did a second YouTube live stream Saturday just gone. It started out rocky, shall we say? as I battled with my Elgato to try and get it to capture the Wii. Then, I only went and put the disc in the wrong way round to further add to the chaotic start to the live. Eventually though, we took a look at a couple of GameCube games in Disney Sports Football and Super Monkey Ball before firing up some Wii classics. Job Island, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, Ninja Bread Man, which was very difficult to control, and Harvest Moon Tree of Life. I'm mindful I've been prattling on for some time now, but before moving on, I do want to talk about Job Island, which was recommended by a friend online. In Job Island, a meteor is set on a collision course with Earth. You play as a member of a family that is addicted to the shopping channel on TV and must work part-time jobs to save up enough money for the Transformer watch they're selling. This should allow you to turn into a superhero capable of pulverizing the pesky comet. Each job always plays out as a mini-game, but this title has a great sense of humour, and I've honestly been playing it so much since Saturday morning. So, if you have a Wii, you might want to make sure you have Job Island in your games collection. And that, friends, is what I've been playing recently. Now it's time for the return of popular segment, Listeners' Whispers. Let's find out what you have to say. Hi offrailgamer, I didn't realise it was award season, so thank you for naming me Organaut of the Year. The award looks really good on my wall. With a new year, there will be new games, so I was pleasantly surprised by the news you relayed that games like Golden Axe, Streets of Rage and Crazy Taxi are coming back with official support. Speaking of news, is Witcher 3 old news now? I better get round to playing it then. Finally, you covered racing games in your last podcast. Not a genre I've spent much time with, but it did remind me of racing games like Pod or Wipeout that I did play, where the spacey electronic music was as mesmerising as keeping that pole position. Good times. Thanks and bye! Lawrence. That message, of course, from friend of the podcast. Well, I hope I can call you that. I know we've not officially or formally agreed any such thing. And Organaut of the Year 2023, Lawrence in South Shields. I'm glad you're hyped for the upcoming Sega Classics sequels. These games were absolute diamonds back in the day, and I can tell you that I'm just as excited to see what they'll do with them. I'd be reluctant to call Witcher 3 old news, as I know that, for many people, including myself, this is still a game that many of us return to and sink a silly number of hours into. However, The Wild Hunt will be celebrating its 9th birthday this year, as it slowly edges ever closer to one day being considered a retro title. With releases on most, if not all, modern platforms. I mean, you won't find it on the Evercade, but that system is designed to take us back to the 8 and 16-bit eras. Nonetheless, there's never been a better time to jump into Andrzej Sapkowski's world of Witcher. And finally, thank you so much for sharing Pod with me. I've not played enough to talk at length on this game just yet, and I want to be able to do it justice, but I massively appreciate you sending it over for me to try out. And I'll make a note to pick this up again in the next episode for sure. Thank you for writing in, Lawrence, and may I suggest you keep a tin of Brasso handy so your award retains its shine. If you'd like to have your comments read out in the next Listener's Whispers, simply share them to offrailgamer@gmail.com, and if they're clean and not too mean, I'll give you a shout out next time. Now, how about some gaming news, eh? Oh, it's good for you. Did you play Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding? Did you enjoy Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding? Well, if so, you might have been excited to learn that the game is getting a sequel, On the Beach. Unfortunately, Death Stranding is another title I haven't found time to get to yet, but I do know that from what I've seen of it, it looked absolutely beautiful. It's had a real mixed reaction from people I know who have played it, so you tell me, are you looking forward to On the Beach? I'll pop a poll up on this podcast you can use to tell me if you so wish. The Nintendo Switch 2 is expected to release this year, and Nintendo are working hard to try and make sure that 10 million consoles will be available by March 2025. Are you excited for this? I am, but time will tell whether my poor wallet can afford to get on board from day one. It seems fair to say that the Switch benefited from lockdown when sales skyrocketed. That's also when yours truly bought into it too. But does that mean we'll see the same levels of success for its little brother? Well, I hope so. I'm going to keep this segment short this week, as the intro was much longer than usual. Let's pick up the conversation where we left off last time, and I promise I'll share my secret racing game title with you today. We're talking racing car games, and last time out the conversation was sadly cut short before I got on to the remaining titles that I'm going to talk about today. And as promised, I will finally tell you which game inspired me to record these episodes. But I won't tell you where it's going to appear in the list, so if you're intrigued, you'll have to keep listening that far at least. For now, let me talk at you about Forza Horizon 4. If you're unfamiliar, the Forza Horizon series always picks a location and sets up a car event, almost like a festival. You play as one of the drivers at the festival, and there are a variety of races, time trials, challenges to speed through, earning you festival points to unlock new courses and trials. In Forza Horizon 4, we're taken to good old Blighty and get to tear around some UK road networks in rally cars, or high-end sports cars, classic cars, and other vehicles. This isn't a complete map of Britain, and I can't say for sure that any of the road layouts are 100% faithful to real life, but you definitely get the feel of driving around some of our scenic locations in the north. It's even complete with roundabouts. Please give way to the right. And now, here's a thing, and let's hope it's not a national phenomena, but locally I've found that no one checks to give way on roundabouts anymore. They seriously just grip the steering wheel with both hands, stare straight ahead and trust in a power greater than themselves to see that they don't get in a nasty accident. So, quick public service announcement. If you're listening to this, please give way when approaching roundabouts, and keep yourselves safe out there. Anyway, another feature of the Forza Horizon games, now I'm certain this is in 5, but I think it is in 4 as well, is barn finds. Hidden around the map are dusty old cars rotting away in old farm buildings. You can find these and get your crew to tune them up for you to take out on the road when they're ready. I really like these games, not to mention how gorgeous they are graphically. I couldn't make a list of racing car games without including Forza. But here's a game that I don't know has ever got as much attention as it deserves. Split Second. Now, I must confess, I had serious reservations when I first loaded this game up and saw Disney Interactive Studios. I thought, wrongly I may add, that it was going to be an overly child-friendly game. But the truth is that Split Second is totally badass. Yes, it's a racing game, but by driving like a boss, you can build up speed boosts and some wild special extras, unleashing explosions, hellfire, and even the total destruction of sections of track. The premise of Split Second is that it's a knockout-style TV game show in which you participate in different events to try and earn enough points to make it through to the following episode. It's a bit like the Jackass video game on PS2, if you're at all familiar with that game, only you perform all the stunts from the driver's seat of a motor car. The first time I played Split Second, I was pleasantly surprised, thinking, this game is actually pretty fun. But I still thought I'd have a hard time explaining to my friends that I'd spent my weekend playing a Disney game. I honestly don't know why that was such a difficult fact for me to shake off all that time, but it was. After giving it a few more chances though, I came to realise that there's nothing babyish about this title. Mechanically it's very different, but I think it releases endorphins in the same way as Crazy Taxi. It certainly seems to give me the same kind of buzz. 2 weeks ago I talked about how Need for Speed Hot Pursuit makes you feel like you're driving in a James Bond film. Well, Split Second really ups the ante with all the high octane and explosive action. I say this a lot, but seriously, do yourself a favour and check this game out for yourself if you haven't already. But let's keep that energy going as we look to the next game in today's discussion, Destruction Derby. Now, This isn't a title that I have in my game collection yet, despite having dreamed of owning it since playing the demo on the original PlayStation when I was still just a naive, young, nubile boy. I found it very difficult to believe that anyone out there is wholly unaware of Destruction Derby. In this game, you get to go banger racing, tearing around racecourses, bashing into your rivals. You'll see twisted metal flying across the tarmac as door panels, bonnets and other parts of the car are torn from the integral structure of the divine driving machines. This one's in a similar vein to the Burnout games that we covered in the last podcast episode. Turn the key in the ignition and let's unleash the carnage. I can't say too much more about Destruction Derby because, as I say, I've not had the good fortune to have played the full game. Luckily, we have 2 more games to talk about before I wrap things up for another week. And one of those is the elusive title that inspired this monologue altogether. But that can wait, because first I want to talk about Rage Racer on the PS1. You may have seen I played this on YouTube some time ago. I believe this game is part of Namco's Ridge Racer series. It's arcade racing at just about its finest, with chunky yet beautiful graphics. You speed around what looks like a Mediterranean coastal town with quick access up into the mountains. It always put me in mind of a Greek or Italian island town, perhaps because of the ancient ruins and columns. You'll have noted that I'm not very good at Rage Racer, but that in no way means that I love this game any less. You earn money from races to buy upgrades for your car. You know, all the standard mechanics of these racing games. But it's that genuine 90s arcade on the home console feel that really resonates with me. It's a really fun game that I personally couldn't ignore when scripting this podcast. But what's the game that... It's Mobile 1 Rally Championship. Mobile 1 Rally Championship is the game I've waited the last 2 weeks to talk to you about, and now let me tell you why. At some point during my teenage years, my family got our second ever home PC, and at around this time I found we now had 2 games for it that caught my attention, Rayman 2 The Great Escape, and another disc that I knew only as Rally. Our home computer wasn't very powerful and kinda struggled to run this game, but I do remember being enthralled by the scenery you'd drive through in it, with farm tracks you could turn up, and piles of felled trees you could nip behind. It really did feel like going for a drive in the countryside. I don't know what happened to our copy of this game, and for the longest time I couldn't remember the name of it. As I say, I only really knew it as that rally game on PC at the time, and that was almost half my lifetime ago. Perhaps around a week before the last podcast aired, I found my rally game again. I watched a YouTube video and saw all my almost half-forgotten memories play out on the screen. This was it. This was the game I'd spent the last decade hoping to one day find again, and better still, I found a site where I should be able to download a playable copy of it, if I can find the historic drivers required to run it. But that's it. Mobile 1 Rally Championship. I searched for so long to find you again, I will find a way to play you. So keep your eyes peeled, my dear Organauts, because you can bet your butt it'll be going up on my YouTube as soon as I do find a way to get it running on my current hardware. So guys, there you have it. Some racing car games that I've talked about. We'll change the subject for our next podcast. Keep an eye on my YouTube, TikTok and Twitch for more live streams and video content. Drop me an email to offrailgamer@gmail.com. And otherwise, stay amazing, you glorious people whose ears I've been all up inside for the last half hour-ish. Bye for now.